Surviving Reality contains explicit content full of snark and sarcasm that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Surviving Reality.
I'm Corey.
And I'm Carly, and we are here with the Traitors Season 3, Episode 10, The Power of the Seer.
Even though we don't actually see the power of the Seer firsthand this episode, we hear a lot about the Seer, but we don't see any seeing that happens.
Okay, I'm going to complain right off the bat that this is a cliffhanger episode.
Spoiler alert.
And I feel like they've done pretty well this season with not leaving us on a ton of cliffhangers.
They didn't really have the opportunity to because the Traitors were just so busy fighting amongst themselves. They never got to end in the formulaic ways that they had in previous seasons.
That's true. Touche.
That's what's going on. That's the problem. But it's been good TV. Yeah, it's been good to watch.
So in this episode, one faithful faces a decision that could make or break their game. The mission offers a chance to win a great power. The pressure to banish a traitor at the Roundtable is on, with this being the final time a player's identity is revealed. So that is the twist this season, is that after this last Roundtable, well, it's not the last Roundtable, but this upcoming Roundtable, that's the last time someone will stand up and say, I was a faithful or I was a traitor.
They're not going to keep admitting to it in the end game.
You have to be strategizing for that. And I'm not sure anyone is doing that but Dylan.
It's easier as a traitor now because you can sneak into the final and pretty much make your way if you have enough people who vaguely kind of trust you, mostly trust you.
Or is it going to make the faithfuls more suspicious at the end? Because if there's someone who you're not completely sold on, are you just going to vote them out at the round table?
You have to have the votes to do that, though. So that's where it gets tricky, is if you have a suspicion and you are not in a majority position to get that person out, then you're finishing the game with them. And that's it. That's that.
I guess that gets us back to where we were waiting for Brittany's answer on the ultimatum of will she accept the invitation? Well, it's not really an invitation, is it? Because it's blackmail. She either has to become a traitor or she's out of the game. And that's because Danielle doesn't want to go to the end with anyone but Brittany. Or so she claims. But I am becoming very suspicious of Danielle the more that goes on.
Didn't take much deliberation. Brittany seemed to jump right on board with this.
She didn't look surprised at all that the traitor was Danielle. And I think that's for a few reasons. One, Danielle has been a really bad traitor. It's been pretty obvious. But two, what we're hearing now is that Danielle violated her NDA and told Brittany that she was a traitor and that at some point, if she had the opportunity to recruit her, she would. So this is something Brittany fully expected to happen if Danielle had the opportunity to do it.
There's probably ways around that to say, I was saying if I were a traitor and I had the opportunity to recruit you, I would.
Unless she was caught on like a hot mic or something. This is my hope. I am holding out for if Danielle wins the money at the end.
You think that Brittany's in with the sound guy? She's getting the hot mic situations going on.
We're filming the jinx here.
She's got headphones on. She's got the cans on. She's ready to go.
She's got a recorder in her pocket.
No, she's not that savvy. We're giving everyone this entire season way too much credit for being here.
I know, but there's just the last shred of hope that if Danielle wins the money, the show will take it away because she violated her NDA. And that is what I am holding on to.
I think the worst part of this is that now we get to watch Brittany and Danielle strategize a murder as traitors together because she did accept the recruitment. So now we have to pick between Iva, Gabby.
Why is that his name?
Gabby or Tom. Nobody can say Ivar, and nobody knows there's an R at the end.
Is it a joke? I think it's a joke. Because they thought it was Iva for like the first 2 weeks.
Because Rob was the only one who kept saying it?
I am fascinated that they don't give them a sheet that lists everyone's name. Because no one can spell at the round table either.
Iva. It's pronounced Iva. Yeah.
Where the fuck? Oh, okay. So they both agree that they trust Danielle. Nope.
Nobody trusts Danielle.
They trust Dylan and Dolores. There are a lot of people with names that start with D still left in the game.
Yeah.
That's becoming increasingly difficult for me.
But they
trust
are off,
Dolores?
They are off limits. Dylan and Dolores, they have them right where they want them, right in their pockets. Faithfuls who are going to follow them to the end, no matter what. No question, no doubt.
I don't know why they think that about Dolores, because the only person she's been voting for at the round table is Tom.
But Dolores isn't the right type of faithful that you need at the end of the game. Dolores is still a loose cannon at round tables.
She listens to herself. She's not convinced by the conversation that takes place because she keeps voting for Tom.
You want faithfuls who are just tired of thinking at this point. They don't want to strategize anymore. Just tell me who we should vote for. I don't trust that person. It's not you guys.
The faithfuls that will lean on other people to get them into the final.
And let me know, how are the votes looking? Is that enough? Are we going to be able to all agree on the same thing and then we'll just vote in unison and then we're done with it and I don't have to think with my brain anymore?
I think Chriselle would have been good for that.
Chriselle probably would have got here. And she is an unwavering faithful at that point. Yeah, no question. Except for Tom. Tom would still have suspicion on her.
Well, they're considering Tom and Gabby because both of them have been on to Danielle.
Which again, those aren't the people that you should be murdering this late in the game because that's only going to add more suspicion to Danielle, which I am for as a viewer at this point. But strategically, as a traitor, that is a really bad move to be making.
Ivar's name gets thrown out at one point, but it seems like it's really coming down to Tom or Gabby, which is a disappointment for us because we've been enjoying watching the two of them.
We knew it was bound to happen at some point, and I've had both of their names up for consideration a couple of sessions ago here in terms of the gameplay as far as that would go. Ivar's been a threat, a low, under-the-radar sort of threat to the Traitors, and I don't think that they're still aware of that because they're still letting Ivar go through because at this point, I don't know how you can consider murdering Gabby, even though Gabby is a threat too. She's onto you. She's a pretty savvy game player as well.
But Ivar won't let go of the theory that one of the other traitors is a woman.
One or two. So yeah, he seems to be very set on the lady traitor theory. So I don't know how you would think eliminating a gal at this point is going to help in any capacity.
I'm telling you, I think for the past 3 weeks, they should have murdered Ivar.
It's been a big problem, and it's just looming and growing here. But at breakfast the next morning, I don't know how people haven't picked up on this yet.
This is a clue for future cast members of the Traitors. You need to pay attention to the order in which people enter breakfast.
Because this week, we had Dylan and Danielle walk into breakfast first, and then who are the next two people in?
Brittany and Dolores.
Dolores and Brittany. So you have the two traitors and the two people that they named as their closest faithfuls who they would be taking to the end.
Yes. And then the most telling thing has been that if you're one of the last people to walk in at breakfast, you were being considered very seriously to be murdered.
Heavily considered for murder. So, I mean, the first part is kind of circumstantial. Obviously, that just lined up based on the way that they were talking about this. So you can't always base it off who's first in the room. But definitely the last few people, if you're the last person in, you were almost murdered last night.
They do like to plant a traitor in the very first couple of people who walk in the room. That happens a lot. It's not always that they're the first two, but the first 4 or 5 people, one of them is pretty much always a traitor.
I think they have sprinkled in like Carolyn or Danielle towards the end too, where then they were up for debate as they almost got murdered, but they didn't. It was this other person.
But that's you're assuming that people are catching on to it. At this point, I'm convinced nobody's paying attention to anything aside from Dylan. And I'm not even sure that I should have that much trust in him.
We do get a fresh look from Gabby. Her outfit is popping in the castle today.
Yeah, what is she wearing? I'm fascinated. Do they get paired with wardrobe people? Like, do they call everyone and say, hey, this is who you could work on for costuming? Or do they go out and spend a bunch of money on clothes?
I would assume that you would be responsible for your own
so
wardrobe.
You invest money in coming here?
Oh, yeah. And Tom lost his suitcase on the way here. That was making that even more detrimental. He
Never
probably had
forget.
an entire wardrobe that went up in smoke there. But he's going to have to pack his bags tonight, though, because he is the one who is murdered. He doesn't make it to breakfast.
What a bummer. I don't know why I'm saying that. I think Tom came into the house as the most expected villain that no one was going to root for. And then he managed to bring a levity to this show that made it enjoyable to watch. And I didn't want to see him go.
It was a bummer to see him go. I don't think it was a good play, though, to have Tom go at this point. I think that Ivar was a bigger threat than Tom because Tom and Dolores seem to be locked.
Why get rid of Tom if you're going to keep Dolores in the game? Because she is fully convinced that Tom is a traitor. Just let her go to the last few round tables, convincing everyone else that it's finally time to vote for him.
And I get that for her, it would be a wasted vote. If you're Danielle and Brittany, you're trying to secure votes at the round table. They thought that they had Dylan and Dolores, that they would be able to sway them in whatever direction they were going. Time will tell on that, but it seems like Dolores has her own mind made up, usually when she goes to the round tables.
Right, that's where I don't understand that logic, because she has listened to conversations week after week at the round table and does not change her vote from no one else is going to vote with her. She votes completely alone for Tom.
So I don't know if they thought that, hey, if we murder Tom, we can eliminate Dolores' number one suspect, and then we can steer her in the direction of wherever else we want to go. So I could maybe understand that reasoning a little bit, but they seriously underestimated Dolores' dedication or devotion to her own voting block that she has established here. Table for one, please.
Watching Tom receive the notification that he's been murdered was just the cherry on top of what has been, I feel like, a perfect season for him.
He seemed to be going out on a high note. He saw himself as a real threat to the traitors, even though
so satisfied to finally be murdered because he knew he was just playing this game so well that it was only a matter of time before he got murdered by them.
Only a matter of time. Definitely. Eventually, it happened.
So I love that the delusion lasted all the way till the last moment. And I'm really disappointed because I have not found the video yet where Tom finds out who the traitors are.
So normally what happens is they do on the Traitors YouTube channel, they have a video that comes out of the person who was murdered and the person who was banished. But spoiler alert, it's a cliffhanger tonight, so we don't even know who was banished. So they're probably going to wait until next week, I guess, to drop that video.
I hope they're just like waiting a day or two to drop it because I really want to see him find out that Dolores is not one of the traitors.
He's going to be devastated, absolutely gutted.
He was not anywhere near correct.
So he's not correct, but there are other people in the house who are a little bit closer on track than Tom was. We have Gabby, who is all out for Danielle now.
Okay, hold on. We cannot move past Alan's goodbye to Tom.
Oh, yes. This was a big moment.
Usually we don't talk about when he throws their frame onto the ground, but the writers of this show have been sitting on this line, just waiting for it to be said.
You mean Alan? There's no writers for the show. This is Alan's castle, by the way.
Purely
Alan
picks the traitors.
Selected everyone individually of who he wants to be here. This is his sole production. Nobody else is involved.
He says, for once, you were actually faithful. He's never going to live that down.
They knew they were never going to pick Tom as a traitor. But also, Tom would have been the absolute worst traitor because he would have been so obvious and apparent. He would have been so nervous.
You know how they brought Kate back multiple seasons? I'm really hoping we get Tom again and he gets to play as a traitor. But I don't know if they can do that because they did that with Kate and they changed, first she was a faithful, no one believed it. And then she was a traitor the second time around.
She came into the game as a faithful and she was recruited as a traitor later,
true.
though.
Catch. That's it. That is true.
So there is a twist there. You never know.
Anyway, I interrupted you about Gabby being on to Danielle.
Yeah, because just after breakfast, it's breaking off into the different conversations that take place. It's seeming like most of the stuff is shaping up for a Gabby versus Danielle sort of roundtable discussion. But we know how quickly the tables can turn before the mission and after the mission. So before the mission, that's kind of where we're at. Gabby versus Danielle. It's kind of not looking great for Gabby right now.
I feel like Gabby's screen time has been getting cheated by the fact that Tom was still here, because watching her continue to end up in rooms alone with Danielle this episode.
Oh my God.
Was hilarious.
There were so many, multiple separate rooms, awkward exchanges between Gabby and Danielle, where Gabby's not saying who she thinks the traitor is because she thinks it's Danielle. So she's not telling Danielle anything. And they're just swimming in silence, basically, drowning in it.
But she keeps making so many faces, and Danielle is not, they're not looking at each other.
Well, Danielle's just kind of staring off into space. She doesn't look well. She seems very scattered now, too. She's kind of taken on some of that Carolyn energy. It's like every person that she's eliminated from the game, she just is gathering up different traits of those people.
She's absorbing their energy.
That's what's happening here. Yeah, some residual effects here. The thing that I learned after breakfast before the mission is that Dolores is a total idiot. If you had any doubts, she's a moron. That's what's going on.
I don't know.
I was convinced at this point, because when Danielle is talking to Dolores and telling her, I trust you more than anyone in this game, and Dolores is going, yeah, that makes sense. No, because Danielle very clearly is in with Brittany. If you're saying that you trust me the most, why would you be gallivanting around the castle with Brittany so much?
Oh yeah, that was another misplay from Danielle. I'm not sure if Dolores is playing a game here. Look, I have not been convinced. Either she is
so dumb,
dumber than MJ.
So dumb, which is an okay. Those are the types of faithfuls that you have in the late game. The element here that is missing is that she is not moldable, shapeable in her voting, though. And that is a really big component when you get down to these smaller round tables.
Yeah, but when they first approached her before they went to the mission, it did seem like Dolores was ready to vote for Gabby.
She said Gabby or Ivar. Those are her two names.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's what it comes down to. And they were saying, well, if you want to get Gabby out, Brittany and Danielle, they will vote.
Because,
and then that's three.
No one else is saying Ivar's name except for you, Dolores, which that should have been the red flag, because Dolores has been doing that.
Yes, and you need to steer away from that. And so how do you get her to be convinced that that's the way to go? I don't know.
The problem is they heard what they wanted to hear. And because she said Gabby's name, totally dismissed the fact that she also said Ivar.
They said, oh, okay, great. We'll be able to convince her because we can tell her that we're going to vote for Gabby and then she'll vote for Gabby. No, that's not how Dolores votes. Dolores votes on gut instinct based on whatever she's feeling that evening at the round table based on the arguments that are laid out.
Meanwhile, Dylan and Ivar sit down, and this conversation happened the opposite way of what I expected. Because Ivar is the one who says, look, Danielle's a traitor. I am totally convinced of it. I think that that's who I'm going to vote for. And Dylan tries to talk him out of it and to consider voting for Gabby.
Are you sure? Yeah, maybe keep an open mind for Gabby to have your options open here. But they are convinced that they are both faithfuls and that they can trust each other. So that's why they're kind of more willing to openly discuss this together amongst themselves at this point.
I'm still feeling like Dylan knows Danielle is a traitor, but he would rather go into the final with someone he knows for sure is a traitor that he can vote out.
It gets difficult, though, because then you have to have a group of people. You have to convince everyone else to do a voting majority to then eliminate Danielle. And that's later in the game when then you do not get it revealed when she leaves, if she is actually a traitor, if you were right.
It does seem like tonight's roundtable would be the one to get someone out, a traitor out, because it's the last time you're going to get one of them to stand up and say, yes, I played this game as a traitor.
It would be good to have that information, some sort of information. But then we find out with the mission, there's an opportunity for some other information that you can get, not just from the roundtable, not just from who you're voting out and banishing, but also
there's a special power that's going to be awarded that has not occurred in previous seasons.
You get to sit down with somebody and find out their identity, if they are indeed a faithful or a traitor.
Our minds started going right away.
Immediately. Everybody's thinking about different ways of playing this. Because what do you do with this? If you have that responsibility, if you're given that ability, do you use it to sit down with someone to find a faithful? So you're asking someone who you think is a faithful, are you a faithful? Yes, I can trust you to the end of the game together. Do you try to find someone who is a traitor? So then that way you know we have to banish this person. The third thing I was thinking of was how horrible it would be if a traitor gets the ability to be a seer, because it is a one-on-one conversation that happens. So they can go to the round table and lie their asses off and say that the opposite was true. And now there is no way of confirming that when people are voted out.
Yeah, my first thought, though, was Dolores cannot win this because she will squander it away.
She's going to blow it. Yeah, she's going to ask if Gabby's a faithful.
What do you think, though? Because Dylan was the one who seemed to be thinking that he would try to find another faithful.
I think that's more from an insecurity standpoint of he needs to know somebody else in the game that he can trust.
Or is it more strategic? Because then you'll know when it's time to end the game that you are ending the game with a faithful if you get that far with this other person.
Here's the trick, and they didn't mention this. As the seer, you don't have to disclose to
I don't
them.
think that that's part of it.
I don't think that's part of it.
So then they cannot trust you.
So that's the risk then of finding a faithful and knowing that they're a faithful. They don't know if you're a faithful. That could be flipped on you as, why would you be looking with the seer power to find out who a faithful is?
Why aren't you using that to find a traitor?
Why aren't you using that to find a traitor? Which, as a traitor, I wouldn't need to ask who's a faithful. I know who the faithful are. So, I mean, that's easily defendable, but I don't know if that's going to be easily defendable for this group that's remaining in this game.
We never know what direction they're going with some information.
Absolutely not. So the seer power is up in the air. Who knows how it's going to be used? It depends on who wins this. So this is the most complicated mission of the season so far because it's broken out into 3 rounds and everybody's playing individually, and whoever gets the most money throughout these 3 rounds, they are granted the power of the seer.
The whole concept of this mission is that we're taking a trip down memory lane. So we start with the scary ass clowns.
Because who could forget the clowns?
I'm not even normally scared of clowns, but these ones are extra disturbing.
I think it's just because there's so many of them that look exactly the same. Usually, if there's some individuality with the clowns, that doesn't bother me as much for some reason.
Yeah, they're dressed identically, and then you can't see their eyes. Maybe that's part of it.
Well, that's just generally anyone wearing a mask.
Yeah, it made it a little more threatening.
Okay.
You know?
Well, at least the players are the ones who are stabbing the clowns' balloons this time around, because last time it was the clowns that were lunging at them and stabbing their balloons. And we probably almost had an incident where we had to report to the medical team.
Which means the glitter is back, because that was the glitter challenge.
Yep. It's back in full force.
It is. It's all over Dolores' face.
Yep.
So here we go.
The gold dust.
So they start playing the game. It's a memory game. The clowns start revealing whether they have a skull or they have money inside their jacket, which is corresponding to the balloon that they're holding. And so it seems pretty straightforward at first that you're just going to have to remember which clowns had the skulls or which ones had the money. But then they move around a lot.
The shuffling, I would have lost it. Because if they just showed their jackets and then closed them, I would have been great. They start moving around and I'm at a total loss.
They don't even just shuffle. They do like an entire dance routine.
It's really bad.
It's a lot.
It was a lot.
So when they start, I'm guessing this is just kind of pure luck and the fact that if you go first, you're much more likely to find a balloon with money in it because there are only 5 skulls among all of the clowns that are there. So the more clowns you eliminate, the more likely your odds are to hit one of them that'll take you out.
Right.
Because if you get the clown with the skull, you win no money and that's your last chance in this round.
So you get to keep going back up. You can choose to continue finding money if you would like to continue popping balloons. But then you run the risk of if you hit a skull, you lose everything for the round. So that's kind of the challenge. Some people go a couple of times. It works out for some people, doesn't work out for other people. Dylan hit a skull on the first go. That was first round.
Bad luck.
Bad luck. I mean, he was the last person in the first round, so he did have the worst odds in the first round, but still the odds were leaning in your favor because it was 2-1 money to skulls, and by the end of that, it was not.
So they end this with Dolores and Brittany in the lead. They each have $1,000 because they went twice and found 2 clowns with gold. Danielle is in third. She got $500. Everyone else banked nothing.
Dylan, Ivar, and Gabby. So the 3 people who need the seer ability are at the bottom of the barrel. Going into round 2, we have Robin's dollies.
They're back.
On the rocking chairs.
And creepier than ever.
Yeah, they're talking this time. At least it's forward. It's not backwards. But I'm really bummed we didn't have Tom here to pick one up and go, nya, 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 and sing a song for us.
You think he was ready to figure out what song it was to start decoding for us?
Yeah, he was going to start singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat backwards again.
That's not how this one works. Instead, everybody just randomly picks a chair that has a doll sitting in it. That's your doll for the challenge. And every time you pull the cord in the doll's back, it is going to tell you,
there's a snake in my boots.
That's the one Tom would have gotten. No, it's going to tell you how much money you're banking. And you can continue to pull the cord and see if you're going to win more money. You can pause. You can stay. It's like blackjack if you'd like to. Or you take your chance on continuing to try to accumulate more money, and it may tell you that you've lost it all, like Wheel of Fortune.
Lost it all on Wheel of Fortune?
Bankrupt.
Well, if you hit bankrupt, okay, yeah.
You know, you get too greedy at the end.
You're still spinning.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 2 letters left, and you keep spinning. I was sensing a pattern, too, with some of the dolls, because a few people were pulling the string a couple of times and then stopping. And then a few people kept pulling the string, and it was go, go, go. They did pretty well, and then they went bust. So you don't really know what the max is, but you had a few people who pulled the string pretty much all the way clear up until the end. Danielle got $2,000 because they started at $1,200 and it was increasing in $200 increments for every string pull. So it was sounding like 12, 14, 16, 18, 2,000 was the most that you could get. There were 5 different dolls. If there's 5 different options, when you pull the string, some of them went after 2, some of them went after 3 or 4. One went all the way to 5. So you would think there's probably not 2 dolls that are going to go all the way to $2,000, right? If there's 5 dolls and 5 opportunities.
You would think. And the problem is we have the same thought process for all 3 of the faithfuls that at least we're rooting for.
Ivar, Gabby, and Dylan. And they're saying, well, I have nothing to lose because I have $0 right now. And so now I am extra desperate going into round 2. So I'm just going to pull this string until I max out or crash out.
Again, so annoyed that luck seems to be on Danielle's side and that she ends up winning the most amount of money in this round with $2,000.
By doing absolutely nothing. She picked up a doll and she just kept pulling the string. Dumb luck strikes again.
That's what it's been for her, truly. It's not strategy. It's dumb luck.
Dylan, Ivar, and Gabby still at $0 through round 2 now. So it's really not looking good. Round 3, not much better. They have kind of like a reverse cage scenario from when Rob and Wes and Derek joined the game where they had to put coins in to lower the cages that they were in. Now they have to run around. There's these different bags of shit in the woods.
Literally. It's full of manure.
And they are fishing around, rummaging through these bags to find gold coins. And then they have to put gold coins in their cage. Is that what it is? Crate? What is it?
They called it a cage.
They called it a cage.
And then you have to hoist it up into the air.
Hoist it in the air. And then that's when the challenge ends. Dylan was noticing Danielle seems very into this seer challenge, which is a little suspicious for Dylan. She's a little too into this.
Because if you were a traitor, the worst thing that can happen is that somebody else gets the seer, a faithful, right? And that then they ask you to confirm whether you're a faithful or a traitor.
She doesn't want to reveal her identity to anyone, so she's doing everything she can to get this in the bag.
And she's the traitor that is the most suspicious right now. So it's very likely that someone would ask her. Probably the thought process.
So we get through this, and then great job, everyone. You'll find out who wins this power after banishment tonight.
What the fuck?
I was a little frustrated with that, but then I thought to myself, you know what? I like that because it is a fair implementation of this new mechanic. Because if you have someone and you announce, hey, you're the seer, so after banishment tonight, you get to ask anyone what their actual role is in this game. Everybody could just turn on that person and say, we don't like that. You are now the other. We don't trust you asking this. Get that out of here. So it could be a way to target people. Also, if you banish the person who has the seer ability, nobody gets to use that. So if the top person who wins this gets banished, I think they're just going to give it to the second place person and say, you're the remaining person in this game who scored the highest. So here, you get to use that.
So they won't just eliminate it like they would a shield.
Right. Yeah. Because that's what happened with Sierra. She had a shield, she was banished, and then it's gone. So you're not losing out on this benefit that's coming to you. It's just they're holding off on assigning it until after banishment and they know who's still in the game.
They're making us wait for that. And in the meantime, everybody starts trying to gather votes.
Gabby is going for Danielle.
And she's laying out the evidence.
She has reasoning, timeline, screenshots. She's got all this everything.
Means, motive, and opportunity. She's ready to walk in there and try a case.
She's explaining how Danielle has means, motive, and opportunity for being a cold-blooded killer.
Exactly. Now, Dylan decides to go back to Danielle and tell her, this is where we're going at the round table. It's coming down to you or Gabby. And she's trying to get a commitment out of Dylan that he won't vote for her.
He can't make any guarantees at this point. So now Danielle's getting freaked out because they thought they had numbers because they were really banking on Dylan and Dolores. But Dolores is still saying, I don't know, Ivar or Gabby, but I'm still up in the air until I hear them out. So once Brittany and Danielle come together and they realize, votes aren't lining up. This isn't adding up the way that we expected to. Brittany is scrambling around the castle looking for Ivar of all people.
Okay, why is it Brittany's job to whip votes for Danielle? Why is that happening?
Because it would be too suspicious if Danielle did it. But even though I consider them to be an extension of each other at this point, so anything that Brittany does, I'm going to attribute it to Danielle mentally in my just gameplay mindset that I would be in at that point.
I would just find it really suspicious if I was in the castle that until now, Brittany has kind of sat back and let other people approach her. And now she is actively running around the castle searching for people to try to find out who they're going to vote for.
Her gameplay has kind of changed. I don't know if that was just because of editing. They weren't showing us what she was doing earlier in the game because there were instances where she ran out, she addressed stuff with Derek. So she had approached some people directly, but it was more so after the fact on a lot of different things. It wasn't before the roundtables. It would be after the roundtable. So I don't know if it's just left out from editing perspective or if it was an actual change that could be noted for Brittany's gameplay now that she's been recruited as a traitor.
It was very panicked.
Very panicked. Especially looking for Ivar, of all people, who Ivar has just been sitting in the billiard room and he's like, I
didn't know anyone was looking for me. Usually nobody talks to me.
Oh, dear.
Before we go into a round table.
Yeah,
Except for Dylan. He's dead set on voting for Danielle. That's bad news. And then Dolores won't commit to anything. She's like, I have to hear what Gabby's going to say at the round table. I can't tell you that I'm going to vote for her yet.
The only thing that we know is that Danielle does not have a majority for Gabby at this point.
No, the 3 people that they were counting on to vote with them have flat out said they're not going into the round table with their minds made up.
Not happening.
Which is how we know they have kept the wrong faithfuls around. I mean, the right ones if you want the faithfuls to win, the wrong ones if you want the traitors to keep going.
Dolores is she's a wild card voter, man. If you can't get her in line and she's just between Gabby or Ivar, where do you go with that? We go to the round table and we find out. Brittany starts the conversation with a deep inhale, and Gabby is able to defend because it's immediately Brittany who is casting suspicion or questioning Gabby as a faithful. And Gabby is able to articulate a lot of things very well at the round table. We were nervous. This was probably her first time really speaking up at a round table.
Well, having to defend herself.
Especially for that.
She stayed very calm. This was a stark difference to last week's round table, which is the thing that's been sticking in her mind, because that felt like it was two traitors going at each other. And if you weren't convinced by that argument before, I think watching the way this round table played out, like that would be enough to convince me that that's what we saw last week.
Because what was interesting was Danielle starts getting snippy with Gabby. When Gabby is speaking and defending herself, Danielle starts piling on to Brittany's suspicions. Nobody noticed that. Nobody picked up on that, really. And Gabby was snipping back a little bit, but she was keeping it contained. She had her composure still. She wasn't raising her voice. They were kind of in agreement on girl next door, that can always be a threat. And yes, we've both fallen into that same sort of category here where we don't really seem like a threat, but we very well could be.
What Gabby did that was very impressive by defending herself was completely negate everything that Danielle came at her with by saying, well, same for me. Like, you're trying to say that's why you're not a traitor and you're faithful?
Yeah.
That you voted for Boston Rob twice?
Me too.
So did I.
Yeah. Guess
so
what?
if you're going to make an argument that that's why you are faithful, you're not proving that I'm a traitor. Also, why is Tom gone if you're not a traitor? Because he said your name last night and now he's not here anymore.
And Danielle's trying to say that she didn't even know that. So is that just a frame up for her? And so there are ways that they're kind of going back and forth. There's some things that are still unsure. It sounded like a lot of the stuff that Gabby laid out for Dylan before the round table, we didn't hear it at the round table, but we know that those round table conversations can be very long, very edited down as far as what actually makes it onto TV. So I'm hoping Gabby was able to talk through all of those details that she was discussing with Dylan.
Yeah, I kept waiting for more, and then Dolores decides that she needs to speak up and have her opportunity to present her theory that Ivar is a traitor. And I thought, oh no, here we go.
Yeah, we have derailed now, officially. And so Ivar gets to defend to the best of his ability. He says his piece. It kind of is what it is because there is no convincing Dolores. She's just going off gut feelings at this point. But she is feeling a little bit better about Gabby, so it sounds like she's leaning towards Ivar here.
And Alan cuts everyone off because it is time to start voting.
So the votes come in. Ivar goes first. He's voted for Danielle. Dolores votes for Ivar. Danielle voted for Ivar, which I thought was very strange because it seemed like they were going to go for Gabby. So Danielle voting for Ivar was a weird red flag for me.
And then who else votes for Ivar?
Brittany votes for Ivar because Gabby and Dylan also voted for Danielle. So then that ends us up with a 3-3 split, which is very strange because if you're Dylan or if you're Gabby or if you're Ivar, a lot of conversation that was happening from Brittany before the mission today, Danielle and Brittany kept saying Gabby.
And then they didn't vote for her?
And then you didn't vote for her. You went with Dolores on that? So I don't know if they're just using Dolores as a shield where they're making it seem like she's the shot caller for who they're going after and she's the traitor.
It looked really bad for Ivar to say he thinks it's Danielle and then Danielle changes her vote from Gabby to Ivar.
I think that is very bad.
And then to vote in a block together.
The block is what makes me nervous there. And it seems like it is a way to hide behind, oh, Dolores was in on that. She made that decision and that's what we went with. Because I think they realized Brittany probably told Danielle, Dolores is between Gabby or Ivar. So we need to see which way she's going. And we have to stick with that. Because if we both go for Gabby and Dolores votes for Ivar, you're going home, Danielle. Because the other three are voting for you.
Right, but then it's such a dangerous thing to open the conversation at the round table and accuse someone who then you ultimately don't vote for.
she didn't go with a direct accusation. She was questioning things. So she brought it up in a way, Brittany was able to bring it up in a way where it wasn't a direct.
But you have been walking through the house campaigning against her all day.
That's the problem. That's what doesn't sit well with me, is that Danielle and Brittany were both saying Gabby before the mission, and now they have flipped. And for Danielle to flip to Ivar, who has just been saying he's going to vote for Danielle, that's very suspicious. So we end up with, it's a 3-3 vote. And so that leads to a tiebreaker. So Danielle and Ivar are the only options, and then they don't get to vote again. But if you take them out of the vote, it's still a 2-2 split. So we have to see how this is going to go. They kind of plead their cases. Ivar just keeps it short and sweet and simple. It is what it is. If you vote for me, it's a waste.
You're going to take a traitor to the end with you.
You're going to take a traitor to the end. Danielle pleads directly with Dylan, mostly. Not really anybody else, because I think she knew Ivar and Gabby were convinced that Danielle's a traitor at that point, but she thought that she could still maybe get some loyalty out of Dylan here. So it comes time to vote again.
We go one more time, and the votes start rolling in.
While they're voting, Brittany takes a look across the table and happens to lock eyes with Dolores. And she sees Dolores glance at Danielle and nod her head. So Brittany is taking this as, oh my God, is she going to vote for Danielle? Is she convinced that Danielle is now a traitor? She's going to flip her vote. So if 3 of the 4 people now vote for Danielle and I'm still voting for Ivar, that's going to look bad on me. So do I flip my vote to vote for Danielle? So then that way I'm voting in unison with the group now?
See, this is where it's so hard to be a traitor at the end, because do you vote with the group to continue to have trust with the other faithfuls? Or do you latch on to the other traitor because you don't want to be seen as defying them when you're this close to the end?
The loyalties that get so tight at the end here, when it's just down to 2 people, though, it gets really, really hard when it's that obvious, because you're going to get to a point where even if it's the 2 of you, you're still outnumbered 3-2 if there's 5 people left.
It's so impossible, in my opinion, to decide that you're going to go to the end together as 2 traitors. It's every man for themselves.
Brittany is struggling with that decision right now. She's trying to decide she could bury Danielle at this point. She could flip. She's thinking that Dolores has already flipped. So now, am I saving face, or am I voting with the table with the faithfuls to keep my cover alive here?
So they start to unveil the second votes. Dylan did not change his mind.
He's still on it.
Danielle.
Yep.
She looks betrayed. She cannot believe that she wasn't able to convince him to vote for Ivar instead. Gabby votes for Danielle, not a surprise. And then we get to Dolores. Dolores did not, in fact, change her vote for Danielle.
She voted for Ivar.
She stayed with Ivar. And Brittany looks shocked.
She looks mortified. There's a little bit of fear in there, too. She's scared about what's happening here, because this could have been a huge misread and an even bigger misplay if she voted for Danielle to save face, and now she is the deciding vote to banish Danielle as part of the tiebreaker. That's what the editing would lead you to believe on the show. I don't think that's what happened.
Well, we don't find out yet. Brittany's vote is going to be the last one that we're going to see revealed, and we won't see it till the beginning of next week's episode.
And look, I would love nothing more than for Brittany to be the deciding vote to banish Danielle at this point, but there's no way that she wrote down Danielle's name. Even when they were showing that, the deliberation process that she was going through of trying to make this vote decision, and she saw the input from Dolores that she thought was confirmation that Dolores is flipped on Danielle. She was saying, I can't do it. I can't even write Danielle's name. I can't.
Yeah, my interpretation was that she was shocked because what does that mean if we're tied again?
And we did a little research, because this has happened before in the Traitors, where there has been a tiebreaker. It goes to the tiebreaker vote and it ties again. And the way that they've done that in the past is that they go off the total number of votes that you have received for banishment through the entire game.
Look, if that happens, I'm going to be pissed.
Look, not to say that that's how they're going to do it, but that's how that has been resolved in the past. Because some people are saying, oh, do they just flip a coin? It reverts to chance. I think at a certain point, it becomes a chance vote. But I think that the banishment tally for the entire game comes into play first. If you somehow tied on that too, I don't know what the tiebreaker would be for that. At some point, you do have to just flip a coin.
Well, I'm pretty sure that if it does come down to that, Ivar's going home because he has received more votes than Danielle has at the round table, which seems hard to believe. But in the very first few weeks of the game, a lot of people wrote Ivar's name down.
There was more suspicion on him when there were more people. So just by that token, you have more votes against you. Plus, if it did just come down to dumb, stupid luck, we know Danielle's going to win. If they flip a coin, of course Danielle's going to win that coin toss.
So should we make predictions about how this is going to play out? Because we're getting to the end of the game now.
The vision that I saw, how this plays out, is that Brittany does not vote for Danielle. She stays with Ivar. Ivar gets banished based on the tiebreaker of receiving all of the votes, cumulative total of votes for banishment. So he's eliminated. Who gets the Seer ability? Probably Danielle. Who does Danielle sit down with? Dylan. She tells everyone that Dylan's a traitor. It's going to be easier to end the game with 4 ladies instead of trying to convince people to stick around with any sort of persuasion that you're going to run for trying to do those numbers. They know that they don't whip a vote at all.
Well, and Dylan's useless to you now because you had an opportunity to plead directly to him at the table and it did not change his mind. Yeah, I don't know how this is all going to play out. That seems very possible to me. I really, in my gut, feel like Danielle is going to the end of this game and that she is going to betray Brittany in some way and take all of the money at the end.
Okay, so here's a fun way to do this. Instead of sitting down with Dylan, because Dylan's going to be an easy banishment.
I don't know if he is.
For 4 women and just Dylan left,
Well,
I think it's easy to not entertain the lady traitor theory anymore.
Oh, well, I don't think Dylan can say that that's what the theory is.
No.
You're going to have more evidence than that.
Right. So maybe Danielle sits down with Brittany and then she tells everyone that Brittany's a traitor. That'd be something.
But they won't find out. After this vote, they will no longer tell everyone if the person who was eliminated was a traitor or was a faithful.
Correct. So you have to take Danielle at her word for
Or whoever the seer is.
I'm assuming that Danielle is the seer because she had a pretty good chunk of money going into that final one. So I'm assuming that Danielle gets the seer ability and then she either wastes it by picking someone that has no benefit to her or she betrays Brittany with it. But I don't know how anybody would trust Danielle's word at this point because there is no confirmation for anybody else who gets banished after this. You think Dylan's just going to believe her and say, oh, great, we got Brittany out. That was the traitor.
No, that's why I think they need to get rid of Dylan next because he's the only person. Well, I don't know. Gabby might not want to go to the end with Danielle still in the game.
But she wouldn't have the votes to overthrow that because you're voting against Brittany and Danielle and kind of Dolores too sometimes. Because Gabby was Dolores' number 2 of suspicion. If she wasn't voting for Ivar, she would have been voting for Gabby. So Gabby's in a really bad spot too. I think Dylan and Gabby are pretty much out.
So then the prediction is that going into the finals, we're going to have Dolores, Brittany, and Danielle as the final 3.
Yeah, and like how they get there, because right now there's 6. So if Ivar gets banished, that leaves you with 5. Do they murder, or is the seer ability, is that just something that happens and then they're not murdering again? So I guess that's something to be determined.
Mm-hmm.
But even looking at that, the final 5 would be Dylan, Gabby, Dolores, Brittany, and Danielle. Danielle, Brittany, and Dolores have the majority if they're voting in unison.
And they could pick everyone else off.
Yeah, because Dolores is gunning for Gabby at that point. Dolores doesn't feel safe ending the game with Gabby, so she would vote her out. I think their trick would be they need to convince Dolores that Dylan is a traitor. So then that way they banish him first, and then they still have the majority over Gabby.
It feels so risky to take Dolores to the end because she has been a wild card, though.
She's a wild card. So it's scary to bank everything on that. But I think that is the avenue that I'm seeing for them right now. Sit down with Dylan, tell everyone that he's a traitor, get him banished first, and that leaves you with 4, and then you can easily do 3-1 vote, Gabby's gone, and then finish the game with Dolores, Brittany, and Danielle.
In which case, I do not believe that Danielle is genuine about splitting the money with Brittany.
Oh, so then that way she would convince
I think she'd
Dolores
keep going.
to banish Brittany?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that could be brutal.
She just seemed to have a real chip on her shoulder about that other Big Brother challenge that they did together. It was like some holiday special, and Danielle ended up leaving because of Brittany. I kind of think she's been using this entire show as an opportunity to get back at Brittany when she saw she was in the house.
From the first episode, yeah, that was the storyline that they were building up. It was Danielle and Brittany have history. They have beef.
And then they became besties?
Yeah, so that was kind of strange. So we'll see how it plays out. Definitely could see a Danielle betrayal against Brittany. Honestly, it's the only way I'll respect her as a traitor, is if she comes back from that.
Oh, I don't know. This has been one of the most controversial seasons of The Traitors so far, just in the way that the Traitors have played the game. So let us know what you guys think.
And be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Leave us a review wherever you're listening as well.
Yeah, it really helps the podcast to grow if you can do that, so we really appreciate it.
And if you like Surviving Reality so much, we also have our other podcast, Surviving Sister Wives, where we recap the TLC hit series, Sister Wives, and all of the kookiness and craziness of the Brown family.
And you may be wondering what is going to be coming up after we finish The Traitors. We are going to be recapping Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup Season 2. So from fictional murders to real ones.
Oh, true crime. Twist on the whole thing.
This is becoming a true crime podcast in a few weeks.
Slowly but surely.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.